6:30, we obviously have a quorum tonight. Nice to see everybody. Tonight's our very special evening because we also have a number of other guests in our public hearing. Let me call the meeting to order. We are being recorded tonight, as we have been over the previous weeks, by Mr. White. Is there anyone else who is looking to record the meeting? No? Seeing none, I guess we can progress. First item on the agenda is the public hearing on the 2011 annual fall town meeting warrant articles. I need a motion to open the public hearing.
So
Moved by Mrs. Bronk, seconded by Mrs. Catulli. We are now open. Are there any members of the audience who would like to speak on any particular article, or would you like me to go down the list? I can do that. I'm going to do that. Let me see the articles that would affect us. Article 1 would be the first article. Is there anyone that would like to step forward on that? Any comments? Any public? For those, are the votes here, Kelly? The votes here? Yes. Before I progress on from Article 1, I'd just like to recap for everyone that the FinCom will be moving to divide the question because we felt to leave it all together. We wouldn't want to see one item hold up all of the other items. So therefore we have gone and we've looked at each particular item. A, the committee vote for favorable action was 3-4-0, therefore we're not recommending the defibrillators be procured at this time. The 400 amp generator, the committee voted 5-2 in favor. The parking program, we voted 4-3 in favor. The prisoner transport vehicle was 0-7-0, thereby recommending four-wheel. I'm sorry, that the not be purchased, and a lot of that had to do with the timing. I'm sorry, it was 3-4-0. A lot of that had to do with the timing of the potential closing of the courthouse if it were to ever be closed. The four-wheel drive supervisor vehicle, the vote was 0-7-0. We're not recommending purchasing it at this time. The EMS ambulance rebuild was 7-0-0 in favor. And on the school buses, after much discussion, we voted favorable action 4-3-0. Article 2 is for repairs to the Wareham Free Library, which would be a financial matter. It is our understanding that the article will be withdrawn, so therefore we did not take any vote. Does anyone wish to step forward or comment? Seeing none, Article 3 was... Pardon? Sorry?
did you have comments for Article 1? Did you ask for comments for Article 1? It's a little hard to hear you because you're kind of...
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Public hearing is still open.
As a matter of fact, well, normally we're reversed the other way. Let me do it this way.
Go, Frank, go.
Yeah. Frank's got to walk around. No, it's just select when you get cameras on two sides, then get one. I'm sorry. If you do have comments, I'm going to sit to the side here. If anyone has any comments on Article 1, would you please step forward? Could you step forward so that we can also... We're going to use the plate. Well, we like everybody to be there.
Well, I'll just say, I'm Nora Bickey from Precinct 3. On Article 1, I believe at a couple of selectmen's meetings ago, it was stated that this was for the 2013 budget. Is that correct? Did I understand the town administrator to say that during the selectmen's meeting?
Mr. Town Administrator, would you address that issue for us,
Sure
please?
thing, Mr. Chairman. I've tried to state this as clearly, and I'll state it again as best I can for the record. Notwithstanding any other funding source, i.e. free cash, or we introduced a concept last evening to the Board of Selectmen to collect some $3.1 million in outstanding real estate taxes, back taxes, notwithstanding those or any other funding source that has been identified. Article 1, I do intend to submit in my fiscal 2013 budget that will be submitted in mid-December.
Okay, thank you. That kind of confuses me a little bit, because that means that we would be voting on it at town meeting, not really sure where the money's coming from. Is that correct?
That is correct. The question is, what will the source be? The problem that we do run into is if we do not approve anything, even if the money becomes available, we wouldn't be able to approve it without a special town meeting. Or we would have to wait until the April town meeting. So what it does do is it does provide the ability to purchase it if funds become available once the sources are identified.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just follow up with that.
Yes.
It's really not that confusing if you read the article. It really says that we will find a way to fund it, notwithstanding that process, which is a normal process that happens. The capital improvement plan goes forward. I'm going to ask Dave to chime in. Sometime in the, I see the chairman of the capital plan is here, sometime in the fall. So we're looking for the authorization. These are the priorities, by the way. They were in my fiscal 2012 projection for what we would need for capital items. So it's not like, and that was approved by the town meeting back in April. So we're following through on the public safety, school safety themes, if you will. And I've said that from the beginning. If we don't have the ability to find some other funding source, it's not like we don't have one. We have included it in the beginning phases of the building of the fiscal 2013 budget. And that's clear as a bell. So if we don't have certified free cash sometime later this fall, if we don't have a way to collect some of those back taxes that I tried to illustrate to the Board of Selectmen last night, that as fast as we try to run, we're still, $2.5–3 million out. If we collect those back taxes and they're one-time revenues, I would be inclined to submit to the Board of Selectmen and to the Finance Committee that's one way of financing one-time capital improvements that are listed in Article 1.
Yes. If I might, as
Yes.
a member of the committee, ask a question. We have something, if I understood correctly, we have something in $3 million in back taxes?
3.1 million.
Okay, 3.1 million, my apologies. And part of the plan, if I understand you correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm often wrong, we're expecting to collect the $3.1 million? I'm confused here. Because if the $3.1 million is what we're expecting to collect, and we haven't collected in the past, then I really need an explanation as to how we're going to do that between now and, say, next April. Mr. Chairman.
Answer the question?
Mr. Chairman, and not to get too far afield here, it is a program that has worked across the Commonwealth. It is instituted in Delaware. It has worked in places like Worcester, in Hazel, in Thorn, and other cities and towns across the Commonwealth within the fiscal year. So if we can get it up and moving, and that does produce, we're not sure we can collect it all there, but it's called the bulk sale of tax. May I finish, please? Bulk sale of tax liens, which is something we haven't tried in the past. The town simply hasn't tried that method of collecting some of the back taxes.
If I might just pursue this a little bit further, and I do apologize. $3.1 million is the figure. And apparently, as I still hear this, and my question is still the same, do you, in your plan, do you think that you're going to collect between now and April $3.1 million? That's my question, Mr. Chairman, through you to the town administrator.
Mr. Chairman, we intend to pursue this. It is a method by which we would finance it if, in fact, we could get the RFP out and collect the back tax. We just introduced it. I'm not trying to avoid the question, and I take umbrage with regards to any reference. We're trying to put this into a plan to get an RFP out, to get a firm that could help us go about our business in collecting some of those back taxes, some of which go back to the 1980s. So that is the part of the plan to get some one-time revenue collected. The second part of it is to see if, in fact, we can use, perhaps as we enter into the final stages of the fiscal year of certifying the state free cash by the Department of Revenue. If, in fact, that is the method, then we'll go about that method by which we'll put those dollars forward for Article 101.
There was a presentation made at the selectmen's meeting last night That's also answer your question, that was made by one of the individuals who's in this type of program. One of the things that has to be done immediately would be to go in and to review those receivables to find out which pieces of property are still collectible and which the property value may be higher than the actual amount of money that's owed in taxes, at which point it would fall to the town to have an auction, etc. The discussions I heard last night were very preliminary, however, they were quite thorough. And I would strongly recommend, if anyone would like to see a good explanation of what this company does, all right, that they in fact view the videos from last night's meeting. The other thing that we could do is we could possibly ask that before the program was implemented, if the individual could come speak to us. We could ask the Board of Selectmen if that would be be possible. But there was a presentation made last night, and I don't want to quote anything out of there because I didn't take all the details down. Mr. Paulson.
I will make an observation, and only an observation, that, to me, and I know I'm very obstreperous, but to me, it's, I'll use the word absurd, to think that we're gonna collect $3.1 million of back taxes, or whatever, however you want to characterize them, between now and next April. It boggles the imagination that we would sit here and think that this could happen. It's impossible. It's just not possible. And we can't run the town this way. And that's a statement as opposed to a question. I apologize.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, through you to the member, we never said that we were going to collect the $3.1 million. We said that we were going to investigate this as it has worked in other cities and towns across the Commonwealth, where maybe we get 50% of what is on the table. That 50% will at least get us in to clean up some of our back taxes and rolls by which we would put those dollars towards the capital improvement plan. Because it's one-time monies that would go forward. This has been done I've talked to mayors, I've talked to town managers, and talked to town treasurers. This has been done in multiple phases where you don't, I never said that you collect it all at one time, do you, Mr. Chairman? It's a program by which you start to get a program where bulk liens are sold at one time, and maybe it's $1 million. That's $1 million that we didn't have yesterday. And from where I sit, those dollars are much needed. And to be quite honest with you, we should have been going after these dollars many, many years ago. This is a change. This was a change in the state statute that allows companies to go through an RFP process and to bid on providing us with the service. And Chairman stated, I'm happy to have the fellow from Starlight Square come by and brief the committee if that's the right.
I think we probably should do that. The number is 3.1 million that isn't back taxes. I would have to say in last night's presentation, it was never presented that they would collect all of it. There is also another caveat that exists in this, and that the amount that they're supposed to pay would be whatever they purchase in back taxes, plus 50% of the interest that's due on that. All right. However, he also said that there was some legislation that was also being tended to as well. So he had no formal presentation to make last night, but he did put the basics of the program down. So, Mrs. Bronk, you wanted to say something?
I'll let him finish and then I'll.
I will finish. In a space of 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, we went from perhaps getting $3.1 million to 50%, which would be $1.5 million roughly, and then maybe we got $1 million. Yeah, we have. It's typical of what goes on in this town. We sit here and we get these variations on a theme. It's like again, it's an observation as opposed to a question. But the fact we came in 3.1 million, 50% of it would be $1.5 million. Then the last statement was, well, maybe we got $1 million. What is in the plan? That's my question. What's in the plan?
My understanding of the plan is we would attempt to place 3.1. Of that 3.1, it would be reasonable to assume that 50% plus interest could be collected. However, you would not put the whole 3.1 out at one time. You would put out what happens is you bundle it, you put it out for bid, and then you get the best price for it. Am I wrong, Mr. Town
You're
Administrator?
correct, Mr. Chairman, and I would urge the gentleman to do some research as we have on this with other cities and towns. Lowell's just about to do this. I don't think anybody can say precisely what the number would be, because as the chairman has indicated, and we'll get you a copy of the report that was provided, but, you know, I'm sure that the gentleman can do his own research and see the other cities and towns, Lowell, Fitchburg, Havel, other places around the Commonwealth have gone out and found ways to do this and do it successfully. And once again, it's a way by which we could tend to some of our back taxes. And I don't see what's wrong with going after those, because the people, the residents and businesses of this town already pay their taxes for those years. And I think it's disingenuous of the gentleman to say that we can't go after this or try something different in terms of trying to clean up some of this. And we'll take an analysis, we'll take an RFP, and that was stated last night before the board of selectmen.
Mr. Chairman, I take strong exception to the use of the word disingenuous. I did not say that. I did not imply that. What I asked you for was, what is the number you are using in your budget? Don't tell me that I'm being disingenuous. I won't tolerate that. And Mr. Chairman,
Through the chair, please.
Mr. Chairman, directing through you, to call my questions disingenuous is absurd.
So noted. Mrs. Brock?
I just have a question, and that's related to the back taxes. I believe, from the information I got from Mr. Foster, that we did collect almost $2 million last year. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and it's been an ongoing, but the thing is, he doesn't have the money to keep going after more,
You are correct.
because it's very costly.
You are correct.
My question,
Through the chair, please.
Mr. Chairman, my question is, all these people that owe the back taxes, if you look at them, you will see that they owe more on interest than they do on taxes. And if we're willing to pay a firm to come in and maybe pay them 50% or 40%, isn't there any way you can work with the residents to do something with the interest? And that maybe they would be able to pay for that? Do you understand where I'm going?
I do, Mr. Chairman, there are prescribed laws and procedures that have to be followed getting back. And some of the interest, like you said, is upside down the property and the value of the property. And I do appreciate your questions, because they are on time. These are questions that we have to look at parcel by parcel to see what we can put out in various phases. The chairman called them bundles, various phases of bundles of the program. So, and it's not about putting, you know, Mrs. McGillicuddy out on the street. In many cases, as soon as we go and put this process in place, the banks and the mortgage companies pay first. And they say, you know what, let us clear up our taxes because we're first in line. And being first in line is important only if you have a process by which you're going to collect. And I would say that, you know, I said this last night, Mr. Foster has tried to do the best. Because I remember members of this committee being at the auction that we held in the summer of 2010, but that only got us about $250,000. And we still have, as fast as you try to catch up, you still have more of this coming on. The idea is to try to get it bundled in a way that a company can bid and provide us with the services and pay us cash on the dollar to get those back taxes and interest collected.
If I may also, this I think would all be covered in the presentation as well. I wish we had known that we should have heard that presentation last night. But basically, they recognize the fact that there are pieces of property. That yes, there's more interest than there is value for the property, and they discussed how that would be handled.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could, I just want to know, can we at all discuss it with the real estate owners? There's no way you can make a deal with them. You're saying there's legislation that doesn't allow that? Okay, thank you very much.
Well,
Mr.
once a
Chairman.
bundle is sold, I can speak this because I worked for a company that did this type of thing, where they bought debt. All right. Once the debt is purchased, it's up to them. They can go and they can talk within the legal bounds to set up payment plans, et cetera, to get the bills paid for. That's the idea here. It takes the town out of the collections industry. It tries to avoid foreclosure. All right. Right now, basically what we have is a foreclosure process. And that is been handled by the town treasurer. That's much different than trying to work with, somebody who's purchasing debt is trying to work with somebody to obtain payment. And many times it does provide to the debtor a better option than foreclosure. And I would think that that's one thing that we would want to make sure was happening in this type of situation. Otherwise, go foreclosure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I don't want to beat this topic to death. I just wanted to know if you know the statute that's applicable to this process, just so that.
Yeah, I know the presentation with me tonight, just through you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
But I think it's, we'll get the statute for you.
Okay.
I think it's chapter 62, section 2C, but let me get that.
Thank you, that would be most helpful for us. If we could have it by our next meeting, it would be extremely helpful.
We'll have it tomorrow morning, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. McDonald?
I don't want to say anything about that at all. I mean, I'm with you. We've sent out bad debt to be, I mean, it's what you do. You sell bad debt and then you get a percentage of it back. So I don't want to beat that to death. What I got a problem with is up until I think it was last week, I was under the impression that these were all going to be 2012 capital items. So when you read Article 1, it makes sense. But when you throw in the concept of it being a 2013 article, you got a problem, because you have 6 months of payments in here on these items in here, on 3 of the items. If you were to say that they're 2013, would that not greatly change the number and therefore cause a problem with this article? I believe that we covered that in one of our earlier meetings, where you can't greatly change the numbers that are already in there. And because these are, if you're looking at 2013, 6 months of payment's not going to cover that, number one. So now you're looking at least twice that amount, and I'm not sure that that falls in the category, as we talked earlier about, is what we should have done is put in the full amount of the thing, and then later on decide on how we were going to go about doing it, whether we were going to lease it, purchase it, or whatever. But because it will greatly change the amounts, will that not cause a problem with this article?
To answer the question, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, the article is simply an authorization, and the article gives us a threshold to work with. The article will provide us with that threshold going, once again, through the fall, to look at certified free cash, to look at the program we just talked about, and to also, in fact, if we need to, go into the fiscal 2013 budget process, if in fact the other sources do not come about. It's an authorization. And I tried to say that from the beginning, that we're looking for authorization, so that when we go to put this program into place, that we have an upper level of authorization to work with. If there's some additional item that needs to be, or some clarification for you, Mr. Chairman, to Larry, we'll bring that in at the spring town meeting. If in fact there's additional clarification that's needed with the capital improvement program. So that's what we stand, looking for that upper threshold of authorization to follow through on the planning process.
Question from the chair. If you have an item which you have under here for 6 months that is not purchased in that 6 months but goes to the spring, will it be reintroduced
That's correct.
with a full year's expenditure
That's correct.
in the spring meeting?
That's correct.
So it's very-
That would be my question.
Since we're in a public hearing, Tony?
Tony Scasiotti, Precinct 1. I understand, through you, I understand this is, the town administrator says to appropriate, but there's other verbiage in here that says to raise and appropriate, borrow or transfer. So there's a whole host of things that you can do in here, and which gives me an impression that, yeah, appropriate, but there's other things in here. If this is part of the 2013 budget, that's where it belongs. And it belongs on the spring town meeting, not the fall town meeting, to allow this. These are commercial leases. And you got 6 months to put some of these leases through and to get your vehicles or whatever it is that you're purchasing. We're talking 2012. Why is this not looked at and taken off and put on to 2013 in the spring? It's the same, it's only 6 months away. Why are we not doing that?
You wish to respond?
Mr. Chairman, it's simply put, it's an authorization going forward. And I have said this, if we do have the funding sources through certified free cash from the Mass Department of Revenue, we will use that as a means. If we have any other means going through in terms of collection, we will use that as a means. If we don't, we'll include it in the fiscal 2013 spending plan as I believe. I think it's pretty clear. We're trying to get these priority public safety items. I look back at, I pulled 2 years of capital planning minutes, and we've been talking about school buses and replacements for a couple of years, going back, I think, at least 2 years from what I could see. We talked about commitment to public safety and getting a routine program in place, the replacement of some of the equipment and vehicles. I understand the committee's perspective, but it is an authorization to go forward. It gives us the flexibility to use whatever means that we have available to us. I will come back to this committee, as I will come back to the Board of Selectmen and present it and say, here's where things stand and here's how we can move forward. If we have an amount certified by the Department of Revenue for free cash, let's look at using that as a means to getting this done in this fiscal year. But absent of that, because I don't know that today, absent of that, we need to be able to move this authorization forward, in my humble opinion, so that we can get this authorization on the books and then start to put the capital improvements in place.
Does that make sense, Sam? No. I'm sorry.
I'm just,
Mr. McDonald, Mrs. McDonald, Chair recognizes you.
well, she's my wife's political first.
Liz McDonald, through you, Chairman. Let me try to understand this. You, Mr. Town Administrator, are asking town meeting to authorize 6-month leases and the money for that lease, correct?
We're looking, through you, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
we're looking for authorizations that are in Article 1 that we intend to fund if monies are available in fiscal 2012. Absent of that, and I think I've said this to you as a summary, absent of that, we will adjust the capital plan in the fiscal 2013 budget that I will submit in mid-December for approval at April town meeting, with the adjustments in them.
Okay, Chair, oh,
Yes, go ahead.
I have several questions. I'm just asking them small, baby steps. So, through you, Chairman, are you signing leases for these vehicles?
Not until the funding sources are put in place.
But only the 6-month funding?
All of the funding, any of the funding can't, until we have the program in place with the authorizations and the funding sources behind them, we will not put the capital program forward. Is that clear?
That, through you, Chairman, that is foggier than when I walked in the door.
The 6 months is appropriate out of this current year. The lease would have to be for the full term. So if he's leasing a vehicle, he has to have authorization for 3 years, of which only 6 months would be paid in the current year. So that's why the numbers are the way that they are. So you'll notice in the explanation, Donald, you'll notice in the explanation.
Oh, sorry.
All right, there we are showing both the 6-month payment and the annual amounts. All right, so that the voters would understand that the lease is for the full 3 years, of which only a portion might be used in the current year.
Okay, Chairman, through you, that I understand. What my question and concern is, we, the town meeting voters, through you to the town administrator, are being asked to pay a 6-month portion of a 3-year lease.
Correct.
Okay, now, we can approve the 6 months, and in spring, if we don't approve that money, we've already signed a lease that we have to pay for that money.
The same as we have with the police cruisers. Yes, it's authorized in the next budget.
Mr.
And it would
Chairman,
be part of the budget.
it would be part of the budget.
It would be part of the, and show as a budget
Yeah,
payment.
if you look at the charter, Article 4, section,
There you go, Mike.
section 3O of the charter, I already have the charter to sign these. So we will adjust the 6 months into the rest of the plan going forward in the fiscal 2013 budget.
Okay.
Go
You
ahead.
understand?
Thank you, Chairman.
Any further questions?
No, I'm all set.
Mrs. Frank? Don, yep.
Thank you, Marilyn Don here. And my question just relates to the fact that we have 3 lease issues here. And do we know that that is more cost effective to look at leasing as opposed to purchasing? Because what I hear here is that there's some concern over that word borrow being in here. I'm much more concerned about borrowing for a lease than I might be borrowing for an actual purchase. So the question is, do we have figures that tell us it's more cost effective to lease than it is to purchase?
Mr. Chairman, through the Maryland, and it's a good question. We've been grappling, I think the committee has been grappling with this as well as the board of selectmen and others about capital purchasing and leases. And where we have found it has been cost effective, the term lease has been used. Like as an example, the chairman used the police cruisers, which take a pretty good pounding every year. And after the 3rd year, we've got 135, 150,000 miles on them. That's effective use of lease, in my opinion. In many cases, you don't have the maintenance department or the maintenance crews to take care of the equipment like we perhaps have in the past. So where we have found it to be to the advantages of the town, I've recommended a leasing program where it's an outright capital purchase to recommend a capital outright purchase.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Paul, is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Or I refer Mrs. Becky?
A follow-up question. One of the other options mentioned was free cash. And I know last year some of our free cash was disallowed. Can you give me an update as to where you believe our free cash will stand this year? If that will be certified, has been certified, has the DOR been in contact? Can you explain to me how that would go about?
Can you change that down?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you, certified free cash is exactly what it is, Ms. Dickey. It's certified by the Mass Department of Revenue, and that's based off of the numbers that we submit to them off of our balance sheets and completion of the fiscal 2011 audit, which we have been steadfastly working upon. And the auditors, if you look across the way, the lights are burning at Town Hall, trying to finish that audit up. Every city in town, you can't get it done before the October town meeting. It happens sometime in November, sometimes into December. And that's been my experience. So once we have that number, before I submit my town administrative budget in mid-December, I report back to this committee and to the Board of Selectmen as to where we stand on certified free cash from the Department of Revenue.
Thank you. And that free cash that was disallowed last year, does that ever come back to us? Will that be released?
It's actually a cumulative amount. What would happen is it would be determined as what the free cash is at the end of 2011. Some item might be identified to 2010. That might be typical. Our 2010 is already certified, but we were told by letter from the Department of Revenue not to use any funds after a certain date. Right? And that before this year's free cash would be certified, we had to have audited financial statements. So even an estimate at this point would be inappropriate because we don't know what their stance will be on various items. Was there someone, Mr. Paulson?
The issue of certified free cash, the statement's been made, and it sounds like, when it's made, it sounds like a fait accompli. But it's not a fait accompli. It really isn't. Because the state said, and I saw the letter to Mr. Andrews, a copy of the letter to Mr. Andrews, stating that they want audited statements for 2010 and 2011. And I think it's a fair question to this committee, to the people here, and to the audience. Where do we stand with regard to getting the 2010 audit done in order to satisfy the state's requirement, not request, but requirement, that we have that in their hands? Because if we don't do that, they're not going to certify our free cash. I mean, that's the way I read the letter. They were very firm about it.
That's the way the letter reads. I believe at the selectmen's meeting last night, the status was given, but if you wish to repeat it.
Chairman, we are working to close down the fiscal 2010 final stages of the audit, fiscal 2011. For every city in town, let's just be quite clear, if you go on the Department of Revenue's website, if Ms. Vicky or others want to go on the website, every city in town has to have audited financial statements before free cash is certified. That's my understanding of the law. In this particular situation, we are working to once again finalize and complete the audit process, get the management letters in place, and get that process closed down. And as soon as that is done, that information will be transmitted to the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee and the Department of Revenue. And we have been in touch with the Department of Revenue. So I want to make this absolutely clear to the gentleman's point. We have been in touch with the Department of Revenue, and they have been monitoring and working with us very closely, with Mr. Sullivan and myself, to close down the process. And your field rep, Mr. Curtis, has been working with us and has been out to Town Hall on a couple occasions and is filled in as to where things stand literally on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. So I feel very comfortable that we're going to be able to bring those processes to closure and to get the information to the Department of Revenue and to get us a free cash certified sometime in November or early December.
The chair has a question. Once we have the 2010 audit, will the Department of Revenue recertify the 2010 free cash, or is that issue closed?
Yes, they will do that. You are correct, sir.
You will have a new number.
That's correct.
Okay. That amount will then be carried forward to 2011.
You are correct.
And again, they would use that number in addition to our financial results to come to a new number, all right, which would be the certified free cash available for spending.
That's correct.
The 2010 number, is that available for spending, or must it be carried forward to the 2011 budget?
I believe it would be available for spending because the 10 and the 11 are pretty much closed at the same time, pretty much at the same time, in my opinion.
Wouldn't the closing balance be the opening balance?
That's correct.
So the final number that we would have to spend would be the final 2011 number,
You are correct, Mr. Chairman.
but we could identify the pieces.
That's correct.
So we would have accountability for 2011 as well as 2010.
You are correct.
Mr. McDonald, would like to, Mrs. Patulli?
I just want to make a statement, Mr. Chairman, to the members of the audience that have concerns over some of these items. Regardless of the funding source, these are capital items that have been neglected. We need to find the funding source for some of these items. Although the committee doesn't agree on, as a whole, that all are a priority, they can't be neglected any longer. So we need to find the money one way or the other. And to project that forward into the 2013 budget is what the town administrator is looking for, authorization to go ahead and plan ahead for these things so that he can insert them into his 2013 budget, or in the case of the 6-month leases, use that free cash when it comes available to get these items moving forward.
Mr. McDonald?
Wow, that just opened up another question. First off, this article doesn't say anything about 2013, it's talking about 2012. And whether or not we can find the money, I had a little lady ask me the other day, and I'm going to try this. First off, you said the numbers...
Through the chair.
Through the chair, sorry. The numbers for 2010, 2011 should be available when? That's the question first.
So do we have necessary time from Powers and Sullivan?
Literally look across the hall, right out the window behind the jump. Don't look across. They're during the midnight oil. We're trying to wrap this up. I can't give you an exact date and time, but when they are available, as you know, they are to report directly to the Board of Selectmen, and as we have as a custom for joint meeting with the Finance Committee to get that information out as we have in the past. So that's made available when, through you, Mr. Chairman, when it is made available, it will come through that process. And if you saw my letter that I sent, you should have a copy in your packet.
I have a copy.
Okay. I made it abundantly clear that I'm looking to move this before town meeting, so that we have information before the actual opening of town meeting. If that is not the case, then I'll ask for some certification or letter from the auditors to tell us why, to tell us what, when, if, and how they will finish up that process.
I thought I heard November, December just a
Yes.
minute ago. That's what I thought I heard, which leads me to the Schedule A part, which is due October 31st, and that's 2011. That's due to the Department of Revenue, correct? On 31st of October, correct?
Yes, it will be submitted to the Department of Revenue.
Well, if we can submit that on October 31st, then we have 2011 numbers to look at, correct?
But they may not be certified as the auditors.
For their
Well, it
numbers.
could be for state purposes, but the management letter itself might not be
See,
prepared.
here's the
At
problem.
this point, it would have to go, and this is what our question is, it would have to be directed to the board of selectmen, and this is not the forum for doing that.
Okay, well, here's the problem. What we're asking here is, we're getting kind of to the point where someone's saying, I want to spend this much money, give me a blank check. I don't know what I got to spend, and I know that we have capital needs, and there are emergencies in some cases, and there's other things that need to be done, but we also have to be able to fund operations as well. And I don't know that I'm willing to do a blank check, because I don't know where we are. And I'm not, it's not personal, it's not anything more than we're looking at giving up our tax dollars, and I want to know how much we've got. If we came up short in 2011, that carries over to 2012. We've got to address the major issue, which is where are we financially as a town? We have to be fiscally responsible, and if we're not, we're going to have workers out of work. We're going to have all kinds of crumbling infrastructure, worse than we have now. That's all.
If I may, comment there, and basically what we're looking here is an authorization to spend if funds are available. I haven't heard a blank check because there's dollar amounts here that have been requested. There is a question as to whether or not we have the capability to pay in the
That's
current
correct.
year. All right, which we've been assured that they will not, at least this is what I'm hearing, that we will not buy these goods unless the funds are available, and that the finance committee and the board of selectmen would be consulted before those purchases were made. I don't know how much further they can go.
Is that in the,
Right.
is that in the article?
I'm also looking at even our recommendations, and I'm saying there's nothing here in our recommendations that would change based on what's requested here. Pardon?
I'm asking, is that in the article, that they'll come before us and get our approval before they do it? Is that in the article?
I would agree that's not in the article, but there is a question of, you have to raise the money first. It has to be there. You cannot, there is a law that says you cannot spend in deficit. That is, all right, the general court. There is a chapter section that says that they cannot spend over the appropriated amounts. That's simple. So there is a stopgap here. It's not like it's a free-wheeling deal. There is mass state law being addressed as well. Mr. Paulson?
Just continuing on the theme, I also heard November. November is after, obviously, October, our town meeting. And to the question which Bonnie raised, which I think is a legitimate one, or the observation, it seems to me that we should wait until we have a better idea as to what our funding is. Whether you do it in October or you wait till April to do the planning, what difference does it make? I don't see why putting it off for 6 months, for the most part, is deleterious to our planning for the town, either on the operating side or the capital side. Either we have the money or we don't have the money. If we don't have the money, we're going to have to wait till April to see what we're going to do. If we have the money, then we can deal with it in April. But again, I come back to the statement that was made by the town administrator, Mr. Chairman, that Mr. McDonald picked up on, and I wrote it down here, sometime in November or early December. That's what he said. He said sometime in November or early December. Maybe we bring the midnight oil over there. I think that's wonderful.
Mr. Chairman?
But he said, if I might please, sometime in November or early December. That's after town meeting.
Mr. Chairman? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And maybe perhaps I misspoke, and I apologize to the committee. I stated that usually the certified fee cash is received back from the Department of Revenue in November to December. And unfortunately, the way I understand the capital planning process, because I've been working, is that we're looking to get on this fall agenda, capital items. It stayed with the public safety theme, school safety theme that we've been talking about ad nauseum. And I want to pursue, if I can, authorizations, and nowhere in the article does it say reference to fiscal 2012. We are looking for flexibility because we don't have certified free cash, we won't have it before the year. I'm looking for the authorization. In the article, I don't know if there's anything with reference to fiscal 2012, except to say that if we do have the dollars, we did put the schedules together to get the programs up and running on a 6-month basis, happened sometime end of December, January to the end of June. If that is not the case, then once again, we'll clarify this at the spring town meeting, in the town administrator's budget. But once again, my point was that certified free cash will be coming, in my opinion, coming back to the town sometime in November, December. I didn't reference the audits for November and December.
We start to wrap this up.
Yeah,
So we're starting to want to.
Just wrap it up, that's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Trudell.
I'd really like to beat this horse a little bit more, but we need some understanding. We're talking 2012 here, and if we don't have approval of free cash, this is through you to the town administrator, if I may.
Okay.
If we don't have a certification of free cash, he really won't be able to proceed with procurement of those items. If we do authorize them, and we do have the free cash, nothing's really going to change, because then by default, since they would be leases or requiring commitments in out years, they would automatically fall into his 2013 budget as a matter of course. So, to me, we're only talking 2012. It either gets approved or it doesn't. If it gets approved, then we either have the free cash to buy it, or we don't. If we don't, then he has to go back forth at it in Springtown meeting. Am I correct in my assumption of what's going on?
Correct, you were correct, Mr. Chairman.
So we spent half an hour flogging a horse.
Thank you, David.
Well,
This is what we're,
I'll wrap it.
go ahead.
First off, oh, I'm sorry, can I wrap it up? First off, there's a word in here called borrow. And when we originally were approached on the committee, they were talking about, we had debt limit, so we could borrow the money to fund this. So that's not free cash, that's borrowing money. There's a big difference here. It's raise, appropriate, and borrow. So if we were just talking about free cash, I see your point. But we're also talking about borrow. And we do know that there is debt limit. We don't know if we can pay it back, but we know we have debt limit. All right? But there is debt limit. So we may have flogged a dead horse, but we're not talking about free cash. We're talking about raise, appropriate, borrow, or transfer. And there's a lot of different options in there. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Are there any further public comments?
We still beat
See,
it.
now that we move on to Article 2, and we'll take one step back. Again, like I said, having reviewed the recommendations of the committee, whether these are 2012 items or procured before the 2012 budget, all right, I do not see anything that changes the committee's recommendations. Article 2 is for repairs to Wareham Library, as we stated, that will be withdrawn, so it's one requirement for us to discuss it. Article 3 is the distribution of the local options tax, which we voted 3, 3, and 1. It was a matter of, do we assign the meals tax specifically to capital items and then subdivide it into 50% for the school and 50% for the town. Voted 3, 3, 1. Mrs. Braun?
I just wanted to comment that if we don't designate the 50-50, it can be spent, the meals tax money will be spent whichever way the administration or the selectmen want to see it. And I believe that when we when we did go for town meeting, and we did, but particularly when I went out there and said that this was gonna be for capital needs, that was the impression that I got. And I think this article just really makes it transparent that yes, we're gonna use that money for that. We're not gonna use it for salaries, we're not gonna use it for anything else. Because with over $90 million worth of capital items that is needed in this town, we need desperately to make sure that we're designating money for that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have to say on it.
Mrs. Donahue?
Thank you. So there seems to be two parts of this, because that money wasn't clearly designated for capital in the first place. And then this further asks us to split it 50-50, so we could decide to not go with the 50-50, but still keep it as capital. Two parts to this?
So that would require an amendment.
An amendment, but that's okay. So you're asking us, it's not currently designated, I guess that's what I'm saying. That money's not currently designated for capital. It just comes into the town and goes anywhere into the operating budget.
Correct.
Yes.
Mr. Slavin?
Just a procedural question. Since we're pulling numbers out of the hat, if Article 1 comes up before Article 3, I would think Article 3 probably should get voted on first and then Article 1, because it affects Article 1. Might be something to consider.
Have to talk to the boss on that.
Well, I'm bringing it up because it's probably
I believe the change in the town charter says that it's done by lottery, unless the moderator changes it. Right, because they said we could make that request.
money article. I think we have a
Mr. McDonald?
I think one of the, just for Marilyn's question, I don't think that the debate for us was over the money going into the capital. Our problem was where it went. Some of us felt strongly that it shouldn't be divided 50-50 because in some years you're going to have needs that the town have, and other years it may be the school. So we really, that was the big discussion with us. It's not that it's being sent to capital, which I think it belongs to. It's just whether or not we wanted to do the 50-50 split, and would it hinder the school in one year and hinder that was our big issue.
Do we have a number, an estimated number that goes along with this, a dollar figure? Because I don't believe that this amount is going to come close to starting to fund capital needs, so this is just a drop in the bucket for
The
capital.
only estimate we've ever had is what the Department of Revenue gave us. It was presented at town meeting at being 386,000. And the first month's receipts were within 98% of the monthly forecast.
It's a start. Sorry.
Mr. Paul?
To that observation and a question that arises from it, what's the latest figure that we do in fact have, not an estimate, but that we do have from the state in terms of the money? I believe the last time I heard it, we talked about it, that we were going to have something by October the 1st.
There was something.
February 1st, we have the September number. I sent it to the committee. It's on the email website. I believe everybody should have a copy of it.
For the public?
Do we have a copy? Yes, it's public. No.
For the public here.
It was announced to the public last night.
I'm searching, Mr. Chairman.
My emails are down.
At the selectmen's meeting. Do we have a copy of that?
We used it for the gentleman's presentation on September 29th, we did send a report on new occupancy and local meals option revenues to both the chips for the selectmen and the copies here. So,
Yes, we wrote an email and I distributed it to the committee.
And how much was it?
That's
Mr. Chairman.
It came in at $42,991.78 for the month of August.
That was compared to DOR estimate of?
The DOR estimate was $44,143.15, making it $1,151.37 less than the DOR estimate, or at 97.39% of the estimate.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have the 3 sheets that you distributed to us by email. With your permission, I would start those 3 sheets up so they can go around and members could examine what they should have received in the mail. With your permission?
Yes, sir. Do we have copies?
Oh, he has copies.
We have.
Great, thank you.
Very good, thank you.
You don't have to give us one, I've got one.
Yeah.
Yeah. We actually read our email.
I'm set there. To your screen. That's
To
the
the
same
committee, I
thing.
will add to the agenda for our next meeting discussion of sending a letter to the town moderator requesting the article. Freebie considered after article, I'm sorry, article 3 be considered before article 1.
Jim, just as a short, perhaps, I know the moderator's gonna meet with town council tomorrow. I would think we need some type of a legal opinion on this, or some read on it, because I'm not
So
sure.
we'll take our direction from whatever the moderator tells us. I will put it on our agenda for next meeting. Mr. Slavy?
We just reviewed the section, the moderator does have leeway to do that. If she thinks one article will affect another article.
Well, we'll just,
It's written in our system, so he does have a say on
Mr. Donahue?
And just as a final comment to that, it occurs to me, thinking about it, I think we were allowed to use the estimate in the fiscal 12 budget. So I think that number's already been called for, so I don't think even if we vote in favor of this, it won't take effect until fiscal 13.
That's correct.
This will require a special act of the state
So it
legislature,
really is a
so
moot point as far as whether it comes first or after.
any more on Article 3? Articles 4 through 9. Mr. Town Moderator, will we expect anything to come before us before the town meeting, or they will remain as unsettled?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, we have two articles that the Board of Selectmen have approved, and they, the labor's contract and the Department dispatches contract.
And which articles are those?
Article 4 is the Wareham Dispatchers Union.
Mm-hmm.
Estimated at $19,712 in the number we received.
19,000, sorry.
$705.
And the other article is?
That would be article number 6, Wareham Municipal Maintenance Department of Town Custodians.
$40,237.
I'd like to place those on our next agenda, all right, with all details that are associated with the agreement, so the committee has a chance to discuss it. At that time, we'll move for reconsideration, all right, of what we've done previously, which we had no vote, because actually, it's not reconsideration, we took no votes. We'll take votes on those. Will there be any other, do you anticipate any others? So we can finish our business on these articles.
Mr. Chairman, we're always trying to solve these very difficult collective bargaining agreements. I'll keep you posted on that.
Okay, any public comment on the articles 4 through 9? I'm sorry, we don't have the details. Any comments?
Did we put aside money in Springtown meeting for these?
There was a previous article to cover all balances, that
Cover all balances?
all
So this-
unnegotiated balances.
So these will come against that balance?
Am I correct? Are you?
They are funded out of a reserve account that's established in the spring.
Okay,
Correct.
okay, that's what I was trying, that's my rookie
Yeah.
thing for the day.
Do we, producer, do we know how long are these contracts for?
Again, we'll find that out next week when we have the actual contracts.
Well, I thought if they've already finished these two, they should.
Well, we're not gonna finish it. What's happening is we'll put these two on the agenda for the next meeting so we can see the entire, we have a dollar amount, but usually there's other pieces to it. The ones we saw previously, there's healthcare is modified, et cetera, which affects the town, et cetera. So rather than try, we won't move on this tonight. We will definitely wait until we hear the entire contract. All right. Mr. Paulson?
This is somewhat tangential, but let me ask the question. Hopefully, it's not flagging a bit for us. I know this Article 7 deals with the police union, and I did not hear that as being one that's ready to be settled. But looking at and here's the tangential part, looking at the variance budget for the very first month of the year, I see that the police are 13%, which on an annual basis of their expenditures would equal 150% of their budget.
That's questions on the at this point.
I
We can
I
deal
said
with
it was
that.
tangential.
We will be talking about July and August after we finish the public hearing.
The only point I would make, please, is that all of these things are interrelated. They're woven together. And I see this related to this. Thank you.
This would be one of the things also that needs to be considered going forward in the budget as well.
I was just gonna make a suggestion, maybe putting all of the collective bargaining agreements on the agenda, and then we can see which ones are available at that point. If we only put two,
That's probably what I will do, knowing that there's only two to do, just in case
just
anything
in
else
case
comes
any,
up.
unexpectedly.
Right, because of the opening. Water pollution control facility capital improvements was article number 10. FinCom was concerned about where how the purchases or procurement will be funded. There is a safety issue, so we did support it. We voted 7-0 for favorable action. I believe it's also our intention to recommend an amendment that the funds be drawn from the water pollution control retained earnings.
Restricted.
Yes.
James,
Any comments, Andrew?
that's exactly what they're going to come to.
Okay, it's not stated in the article. I would hope that the motion would be modified, or if not, then the FinCom would recommend.
We'll give you a copy.
We have our person.
We have actions.
We have the motions. We'll address that again at the next meeting.
Yes.
Are there any comments on the funding through the water pollution control retained earnings? Seeing none? Article number 11 is a transfer of funds to the Harbor Master Maintenance and Improvement Account. This is basically internal to that particular department. We did approve 7-0. The committee was satisfied with the explanation of the Harbor Master and also with the town administrator. Does anyone have any comments? None? Article 12 is community preservation. And it's basically establishing their affordable housing reserve, and transfer to their administration, and transfer to their, from the basic fund to the budgeting reserve. The committee voted 7-0. It's a housekeeping article. If anyone has any comments? Article 13 is also a housekeeping article. They're voting into the various reserves, 55 for affordable housing, 50 for, take that back. Let's see, article number 13 is housekeeping. It's returning 55,000 of previously appropriated funds that are unused. So we're voting 7-0 in favor of allowing those funds to be returned to community preservation. General fund. Any questions? 14 is, again, it's a housekeeping article. We don't necessarily state that here. It's basically to cover the debt service on Tremont Mail and to cover the debt service on Bryant Farm. Anyone have any comments? Any public comments? Article 15 is for...
Excuse me, I'm a little slow on the draw. What's the status of Fremont Mail?
Okay. Well, we don't have anyone here that I know that can speak. The gentleman, Mr. Slade, has left the room, so...
I'll ask him.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Article number 15 is for the town hall repairs from CPC. We're recommending to support that 700. Our recommendation is contingent upon the fact that it has been designated as a historical preservation site. That being the case, we're recommending 700 that the expenditure be made. Any comments? Article 16, we're transferring funds from the community conservation fund. The committee voted 160 in terms of favorable action. We do not recommend it. We feel the general feeling of the committee was that we were moving monies out of a process which included the town meeting, and we didn't see much wisdom in doing that. We'd like it to stay the way that it is, rather than money being available without a vote of the town meeting to another body to spend. Any comments on our recommendation? Anybody on the committee wants to say anything? Article 17 is basically a housekeeping article for the town. It's a community events fund. It's a formula, 70% of the hotel motel tax, which subsequently the amount's been increased by 2% thanks to the last town meeting, and 40% of the parking meter fund revenues go to the community events committee. We don't have a solid number at this point, but it's a formula. Whatever is certified by the state, will be multiplied by those two numbers. And we go from there. Mr. McDonald?
This is the one that brings us back to the Article 1 on the parking meters, where some of us had the problem, because if we're going to, the money's going to go, if we're going to increase the amount of revenue generated by using this new parking meter system, we're effectively giving 40% of that money to the community events. Not that they don't deserve it, but when you start putting $75,000 out as opposed to another figure, it can come out to a big sum of money. So that was, I think, one of the concerns with that article. The original capital article was not that it's a great program. I think it's something we need to do, but this is we might want to re-look at the percentages. Sorry, Bonnie. We might want to look at the percentages based on the dollars that are going to be generated. That was one of our issues.
Yes, that was one of our issues. The committee also recognized the fact that you changed this formula since a special act of the Massachusetts legislature is now in place for this division of the monies from these sources, that we would have to have an article presented to the town meeting to go back to the legislature and ask for a change in that article. We'd take a special act.
That makes sense.
Any other comments? Article 18 is a non-financial article, so address that. Article 19. Affordable housing, local initiative. Yes.
A question, I'm sorry. On the earth removal, could we just come back to that? Am I missing something? There are some financial implications there. We did talk about them in committee. We voted against it.
Which financial implication are you referring to? What specifically, please?
Well, one was that the proponent said that when he was asked by one of our committee members, would anybody lose their business, the answer was yes.
That's not the town.
It's not the town one. And the only other ramification I heard was a possibility of 25 cents a ton as a possibility. But again, there was no solid facts or anything close to that.
If I just might pursue this a little bit, we're very experienced in lawsuits in this town. We really know how to do them because we have a lot of them. It would seem to me that, and I think we did the right thing in what we did here in terms of our vote, to had we gone forward with this and approved it, we would be inviting yet still another lawsuit. And That's why I raised the
I think that's a,
question.
I think that's a good point to raise the town meeting, but we did vote as a committee against it.
Voted against it, did we?
We voted against it, yes.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
I used to talk to.
The affordable housing, we also voted against. Part of that has to do with the fact that there were some legal issues involved in it. I don't know if anyone has any additional comments on that.
Isn't it? Go ahead.
Mr. Snyder?
Mr. Chairman, the Affordable Housing Committee is scheduled to meet on this issue. It's probably going to be taken off.
When, I'm sorry?
Tomorrow evening.
And that's why we voted That's why we voted against it, because at that time, she did not know whether or not they were gonna remove the article. But she was hoping that they would, so.
Mr.
Once the
Chairman,
committee is met, again, we could speak with them. Mr. Trudell?
through you, I thought one of the other reasons that we voted against it was that there were laws in town to have people be in compliance, and that this would be funding people who were not in compliance, but were making revenue by not being in compliance. So it was more than one reason for us to vote against this.
This is true, it's also an committee recommendation. Are there any comments, any public comments? Mr. Snyder, I would appreciate it if somebody from the Affordable would contact me, so we'll see if we can put it on our next agenda.
Absolutely.
Article 20, on the checking account, pardon?
Can we just put it on our agenda anyways?
Yes, we can put it on.
Okay, well, you said depending on the outcome, I think we should put it on.
No, well, no, so I know what so we know what the outcome is.
Thank you.
Okay, but it will be on the agenda.
Thank you.
All right, Article 20 was a citizen's petition article. We did vote 431. I'm sorry, 430. I'm trouble reading tonight. It is not a financial article, although it can have financial ramifications. So therefore, based on the bylaws, we won't bring it up. Article 21, Bay Point Country Club. Looking for the town to acquire by eminent domain or otherwise the Bay Point Country Club for $1.4 million. We voted against it for, I think, a very obvious reason. We don't have $1.4 million. Mrs. Patulli.
Only because I just wonder if this won't come up at town meeting. I'm sure somebody might be interested in this article. But does anybody know the status of Bay Point Country Club, exactly who owns it at this point? Because, yes, I was told. So how can we be asked to buy something from somebody who doesn't even own it anymore?
Well, it can't be done.
Well, the past two selecting meetings, there's been a representative of the current
Digital.
holder, if you will. They have a potential buyer, but because this article is on the warrant, the board put them on hold, if you will, until after this is decided. The spot move on this would be to just, I think if Canazzi knows, and I'm sure he knows, he'll just withdraw it or cancel it probably. But because it is on the warrant, it has to stay there, and it has to be acted upon some way at the town meeting. But the people who own the property right now do have a potential buyer for more money than what is mentioned there, so it may be all right.
Would you mind stating the name and
Dave Walton, District 3.
District 3. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
So I believe the price has been offered to the bank is 1.7 million.
You're absolutely right.
Right, however, the town does have right, even then, a right of first refusal. The question is what would the price be in the town? So the 1.4 is not necessarily the correct number, but in these instances, usually it's what it is. It's known when the article is written. It could be amended, I believe. No, cannot, tell them
It would be outside the scope of the article, unless it was agreed
reasonable amount within $10,000, but if someone tried to amend it to 1.7 mil, that would be outside.
So if this is passed, the best we can do is we offer the bank 1.4 million. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cooks.
Which we don't have.
Which we don't have.
Thank you.
Does he
Well, we
never,
could save 300,000.
he never appeared before us anyway to tell us about it, so that was,
Yes, that's correct.
so you made me argue the pros.
Yes. Article 22 was a town meeting information distribution, it's a citizens petition article. And again, it's not an article that we're passing recommendations on, it's a good vote 3-5-0 against favorable action. Any comments on that? Any other, yes?
Just a quick, I thought Article 22 was withdrawn.
The what?
Withdrawn. I thought the proponent withdrew it.
I'm not familiar with that.
Is this article?
I know there was an email.
22.
It's the last article.
There was an email.
No, I heard something about it. Okay, I just thought that that's what I heard for some reason.
How they're getting these things.
Before I close
Just
the,
a select few are getting. How much you want?
Public hearing.
so before I close the public hearing, does anyone else have any other comments that they would like to make to the committee? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to close the public
So
hearing.
moved.
Second.
Mr. Gray, move, close. Mr. McDonald, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You have 900.
That's pretty good for us.
Almost the first.
Yes, we move first. I believe the next item on the agenda is next item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from September 28th. So move to have a second.
Second.
Do I have any corrections? There are no additions or corrections. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Stay.
I should have 2 abstentions. You heard last week?
No.
All right, so then it would be
3
6-0.
All the time, okay.
6-0.
Excel and Word.
All right. Next item would be town administrator's report. Now you can have a hot seat.
I thought we had to leave.
Chairman, if I could, please, members of the council, the notes going to be handing out, I think I mentioned earlier, the July 2000 revenue and expenditure reports, July and August. This is not the board of selectmen, it's on the agenda for discussion. Wanted to make sure that we have these, and once again, I think you previously had gotten the July report sometime in the past week's time. And Mr. Sullivan had copies for review.
Again, so all the members are aware, I received a copy. Unfortunately, I was out of state when I first received it, but I did distribute it out to everybody through our email system again. Does everyone have a copy?
No,
No, those are together, you are messing things up. You are messing things up, those stay together with you.
I'm what?
You're messing them up.
How's
Those are
that?
both your copies.
Oh.
There's 2 sets. They're 2 different members.
Oh, Jeff is being so good about putting
Okay.
it together.
Wow.
2 different.
2 different sets.
You're in a lot of
Messing things up.
This is 2 different months, not 2 copies of the same month.
Exactly.
Not a revised copy. Very, very good. Excellent. For the record, these are financial statements for both expenditures and revenues, I believe, correct? For the months of July and August, inclusive of narrative.
And what Mr. Sullivan had attempted to do here was to give you an executive summary report, that once again, through Chairman Cruz, executive summary report of some of the items that the town would want to legislate to the finance committee. Derek, do you want to take a stab at this? Do you want to go through July and August? Do you want to take a look at these, Mr. Chairman?
If I may, I believe they've already received July, at least half of the members have. There was the executive summaries, some explanations for some of the outliers that may be there, and some explanations that sometimes you can't break it up into just 12 installments. It wouldn't work that way. So I'm hoping those were some effective summaries for you. And some of you have not had time to digest it. And for the August report, I've done the same thing. I did leave off the information from the July report to the August, rather than us at the end of this having a 40-page document or something. So.
What's the wish of the committee? Mr. Bell?
I was going to ask a question.
Sure.
When we looked at these original roughs in the spring, if you look at the percentage unobligated, it actually is not the unobligated amount expressed as a percentage, but it's the obligated amount expressed as a percentage. And I know that's picky, but that's generally where my eyes roam first.
We are still working with Ted on data for anything, and when I spoke to him, I said that this is the first night I'd be with you, and then I was sure he and I would sit down and have some corrections to make, so they are welcome.
That is the key. That is the key on the expenditures, is that percent spent versus percent obligated. It also has been noted, I did note to them when I first saw the report, that on the revenue side, the fiscal year 2010 and the fiscal year 2009, the column headers need to be right justified. They're not justified at this point. It's not a big deal, but it's a small little thing. 2011 is also in the same situation. So we're aware of these. Does the committee wish to discuss these now, or would you like me to put them on the agenda for next week for full discussion?
I move to put them on the agenda for next week, so we have time to look at them.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 900. Thank you very much. Nice I guess I can't say 15 or 16 months, huh?
Well, you may want to.
That's enough.
Well, just the committee can issue a press release if it likes.
Okay, maybe we'll do that. I'll give that some consideration.
Just a little bit of humor.
Next item on, I had on your town administrators was the Department of Revenue deadlines for the required reports. What deadlines are we facing? When are they? And, you know, I have the impression that these are like drop-dead dates.
Well, once again, we did have our field representative in Department of Revenue who's been up to speed with us. We had him time it, as I indicated at an earlier meeting. Robert Dakin retired and Mr. Curtis is taking over. We are working with them on all of the deadlines pursuant to the letters we have been issued. And we are working on Schedule A documentation for Department of Revenue. And that will be part and parcel of the closure of the fiscal 2010 and 11 audits. Will provide detailed information for those reports. And I can give you, there's a spreadsheet that I can come and give you the actual items that are due by department, from the accounting department to the assessing, treasurer collector's office. And I'm happy to do that From what I understand, we have not missed any deadlines to date. And we'll provide that spreadsheet to the committee so you can look at it and see exactly what we have for documented deadlines to have multiple fiscal departments working on the completion of Schedule A for the town.
And my understanding is it's October 31st,
That is correct.
Halloween?
I'm sure exactly what date that falls.
Is that preliminary?
So
Yes.
that would be a preliminary. And I would ask the committee members to treat it as such as well. It is a preliminary. It is subject to review by the state. All right, it can be adjustments to it, so just address it accordingly. Calculation of free cash, when will those numbers be submitted?
As indicated, sometime in November, early December, that's the normal process.
Is that when we receive it or when we submit it?
When we will be submitting it before that is the byproduct of the completion of the fiscal 2011 report, backed up, as you have indicated, from the final outcome of 2010. The system that they work with is that you do submit it. It has to go to multiple departments at the Department of Revenue, and so that will be an ongoing process. And usually sometime in the vicinity of the second week in December, we're getting information back on setting the tax rate for the town. And that fiscal documentation is once again worked through the town accounting office, town assessor's office, and town treasurer collector's office.
All right, now my understanding is as we submit the information, then they come back and provide us with the schedule of adjustments, et cetera, to come with the final number. So would we be better to wait until that is returned from the state rather than to see what is submitted to the state?
The system, as some of the members on the committee understand it to be, is the system gateway, NASCOM walk-gateway system, and it is a multiple interface between cities and towns and the respective department representatives at the Department of Revenue. And I would request that you look at the final report, because there's always give and take back and forth on projections that we make, have made, and documentation to back up that process. And once again, the assessor, the accounting office first, the assessing department, treasurer collector's offices has multiple roles to play in that process.
So it is a process per se. Until we receive back from the state, we're not sure of the number. It could change several times.
That's correct.
Mr. McDonald? Mr. Paulson, I'm sorry?
Maybe the same question. I hear 2011, but I don't hear, what I want to hear is something about 2010, and more to the point, $919,000. From what I can understand from what the state has told us, and I stand corrected, they're not going to approve anything until we clear up 2010, which to me sounds logical, but that's just me. So I would like an answer as to what.
That was my understanding, is that 210 in 2010 and 2011 would be submitted.
Well,
Can't do 11 without 10.
No,
It's impossible.
what I heard was 2011.
Mr. Chairman, I did say 2010, that would be backed up. That's the first report that's going to be.
Right, you have to have the closing balance before you can do the opening balance. So that would have to be, they'd have to be together.
So my understanding through you, Mr. Chairman, is that we will have the 2010 audit and the $919,000 taken care of in November. Is that what I'm led to understand as a member of this committee, as a citizen of the town?
To answer the question?
Mr. Chairman, through you to the members, I will get the audit report to you, and you will see clearly what had happened in fiscal 2010. Let me be abundantly clear, because I've said this in the beginning, and I know the media has looked at this in different ways, but let me just be clear. Nobody back there brings the truck up to the back of our treasury and hauled out $919,000. That is foolishness, Mr. Chairman. What has happened in this process of understanding it is an accounting system to the general ledger. It's an accounting system. There's no money missing from the treasury, to my understanding. I didn't hear that from the auditors when they presented it. I haven't heard it through the process. So I just want to make that abundantly clear, because it's a general ledger issue. The auditors are working on to look at exactly what the accountant had done for fiscal 2010. And if you look at the audit report, which I asked you to, you'll see that there's a qualification, and it's called SAS 112. And if you look up SAS 112, it says precisely what I just said to you, that there was an issue relative to the accounting on the general ledger. Nobody pulled the money out of the treasury. Nobody drove away with a Brinks truck full of cash. People can talk about that and make fun of it or do what they want with it. But the audit report will speak for itself, and I'm going to have the audit report to the Board of Selectmen and to the Finance Committee as soon as it is completed. And there will be an explanation as to what the 919 amounted to.
Okay, Mrs. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We basically have understood this from an much earlier discussion, that it was entries that caused this problem, because Mr. Foster's cash tied right out, so we know there's no money missing. We do know that, but we know that. We need to break it down, because in the minds of a lot of folks out there, well, did you find the $919,000? And it's been clear to me for a while that there were journal entries, Mr. Chairman. And I think we have to be very clear, whether it's in one of those handouts or whatever. We are not missing that 919. It was our cash tied out, and that's specifically Mr. Powers said that our cash tied out, if I'm correct. And I think we just need to make it abundantly clear to the town meeting before they get all riled up about it. We're not missing the money. Our cash tied out. We've got some poor record-keeping entries that were made incorrectly. And that's the bottom line, is from the way I see it. Am I seeing it incorrectly?
Mr. Chairman, Donna was absolutely on target. And like I said, people want to have a lot of fun with this stuff and toss it around. And we will bring the town meeting while we have the documentation on the 919. And you were absolutely correct. The information that I have received is that there were entries that were made that were tried to be reversed and then remade, and that has caused problems with the general ledger. But she is absolutely correct that if in fact there was something missing from the Treasury, it would have been in the audit report that I received and in the management letter. And I don't see it in the management letter. And once again, I saw SAS 112 for qualifications that were made, and that's what the accounting firm has to do to basically stress that there's something amiss with the way the general ledger is working and the not working. And I also want to say for the record that it's clear to me that we had worked to get the general ledger, get a chart of accounts that worked a little bit better. It was a little bit more friendly, if you will, for people to understand. So the department heads, when they were putting in transactions, could make those transactions happen with a little bit more efficiency. So I'm not making any excuses, but Donna's points are right on. There's no missing dollars from the Treasury. We had said that publicly, and that's simply a matter of record at this point.
Mr. McDonald?
Wow. So you have, at this point, documentation you're going to bring to town meeting on the 919,000.
I hope they have the audit report from fiscal 2010 completed. If it is not completed, I will bring a letter or some form of reconciliation from the auditing firm to say this is where things stand at this point in time, and this is what we believe happened to the 919,000.
So it's possible that we may get a chance to see that before we go to town meeting. I'm not talking about 6 o'clock before town meeting, but maybe as early as a week before town meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I can't say the exact date, and I understand the gentleman's point, but suffice to say, the 10 and 11 issues do not impact where we are with regards to any of the articles on the warrant. And it's not a rehash of the budget that got approved back in April. I will bring, as soon as it's ready, I will bring the report in, and that's what
let me finish up then. First off, thank you for August and July, because that kind of gives us an end point, and now if we can get the 2010, 2011, maybe we can put it together and come up with something. But anything that happened in 2010 impacts 2011. Regardless of, it may not impact your budget, but it impacts 2011, which also impacts 2012. So they do have an impact on 2012. Whether or not it's a distant impact because it came through 2011, there is always an impact to those. Second off, I don't know that we should even discuss the $919,000 at town meeting from our standpoint until we see something, because I'm not saying the money's missing, but I don't know how much they found, I don't know how much, but my point is, for us to get up on stage and represent the FinCom and discuss something we don't have any documentation on is not a good move on our part. Just
I don't feel that we would discuss it, it's their presentation, and it's the key, and that's the whole
What
thing.
we're talking about is how we explain the $919,000.
No, we're looking at how they explained the
But I mean,
919.
one of the comments that was made was that we want to make it clear to people that there's no missing money, there's none of this other stuff. Until we have a document in front of us that states this is what happened, I don't think we should discuss it on any level, us personally.
Mrs. Frank?
Well, now wait a minute, it is a documented record that our cash was in line,
That's correct.
and it is. So why, why do we want to keep this floating out and,
Limbo.
yeah, I mean, we know that the money's not missing. We know it's not missing. The cash tied out. And when the cash ties out with Mr. Foster, and if Mr. Powers says it's fine with me. I don't want to keep all this stupidness going around. There's enough legitimate stuff going around.
Please.
Mr. Paulson?
The error or errors apparently are going from the general journal, the book of original entry, into the general ledger. I mean, that to me, at least my assumption, is that that's where the issue is. Let me pose what might have happened, which would be a major problem. Department A is supposed to get a grant for $5,000, and Department B is supposed to get a grant for $10,000. Okay? Department B suddenly gets money in the ledger for $15,000. $5,000 more than they were supposed to get. This hypothetical, cash ties out, but they got more money than they were supposed to. And they say, hallelujah. Hallelujah, I got $5,000 more, and I'm going to spend that money. Now, that, ladies and gentlemen, is exact. I'm not saying this is the case, but my guess is that that is the case. And then we really have a problem, because the people who gave us the grants are going to say, why'd you spend $15,000 over here? You were supposed to only spend $10,000. We're saying, we have treated this rather cavalierly. I'm not saying I'm correct in my assumption, but the error has to be, in my opinion, between the journal and into the ledger. The money can be right, but it can be in the wrong pots.
That's correct. That's what we're waiting to hear is where the, right.
Well,
It could be in the wrong pots.
Treated very seriously.
It could be in the wrong pots. I don't think anybody is belittling the issue at all. All right, the question, I think, goes utmost in everyone's mind, particularly when the term fraudulent entries were made, was that there might have been a loss of cash. All right, and as Mr. Andrews has said, our auditor has said repeatedly that he did not find a loss of cash. He found general ledger problems, but he didn't find a loss of cash. Now, there could be problems with grant agencies if monies were spent in the wrong places. But again, I'd rather not speculate. I don't think the committee should speculate at this point, but you're welcome to if you so desire as a committee. Mrs. Couturi? Oh, I thought you had your hand up. Mr. Gray?
I would just agree that the committee should make no statement on that whatsoever, because we don't have any information.
No, we don't.
I mean, individuals, as you say, can do whatever they wish, but the committee as a whole is not.
Okay.
Chairman, if I could shift gears for one
Yes.
minute, just to bring it in the loop. As I indicated to you this morning, at the screening committee, it will be activated as of Friday afternoon. Hopefully, second round of interviews for town accountant. I would ask if it's okay through you, Mr. Chairman, Samuel Gray work with us, Dr. Begley, Anna Moran from the school department, and John Foster, the chair of the committee, the screening committee. We'll have to get those resumes together. Friday's the cutoff, so probably you, Mr. Chairman, saying sometime on Monday or Tuesday, I'd like to activate that committee to get back before them. Hopefully, as you said, applications and resumes for town accountant. I'm looking for the screening committee to send to me, as I have done in the past, 3 to 5 names of hopefully what they feel are individuals that can do the job as town accountant, and once again, just want to make sure that was noted for the record.
Okay, it would be my understanding that until such time as we get a town accountant, that the members of the screening committee would remain the same, so.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Gray will continue to participate.
He was out of town, but I tried to reach him a number, and we did talk, and I think this is the right way to go. I know it's the right way to go, and I will follow the guidelines from the committee as they send hopefully 3 to 5 names.
We got a lot of applications.
Pardon?
Do we have a lot of applications at this point?
I don't have the exact number, but we did expand the search to the Government Finance Office Association, some other publications to try to get a little bit more of a catch, if you will. And I know the committee worked hard on the first round to send me a couple of names, and just didn't quite work out at that juncture.
It's also my understanding that to expand the potential applicants, we had to sweeten the pot a little. Is that true?
If you go on, and I encourage, and I know the people sitting around that have active interest in this, go on the MMA site. You're going to see the towns of Belmont, Acton, Northborough. A number of towns and cities are looking for a town accountant. It's almost like the field that you produce enough crop, if you will, of a university structure, college structure that's out there. We're not going to make any opinions about it except to say that we try to broaden the base to go after. A lot of people look at the GFOA. A lot of people look at obviously the MMA site, and there's a lot of towns chasing after town accountants and their qualifications.
And what would the new range be?
Mr. Chairman?
Do we have a published range, or?
The published range is 63 to 83, and if I need to go above that, I'm going to ask my board and others committee to help me.
Mr. Gray.
Mr. Gray?
I'm happy to hear that they did sweeten the pot, because I think one of our apparent reasons why we didn't get more qualified applicants was that we were at too low a range, and I think that two who the committee found to be capable individuals who bowed out because they could get better jobs and had a better salary elsewhere.
What was the previous range?
It is the same range, but we're going to go to the top of the scale.
Okay.
What's the top of the scale?
83. And if I need to come back and go another 10, then you know what? That's what we'll do. Belmont just hired in the mid-90s.
Yeah, that's ours, right?
Okay, I don't want to get into too much discussion on this because there is a process here that has to be followed. And don't want to publicize.
Mr. Chairman, we all.
Anyone else have any questions for Town Administrator? Thank you very much, Mr.
Chairman, thank you, members.
Thank you for all your time. I know tonight was a little longer than you might have liked. The next item on the agenda is motions and the presentation of recommendations. I would recommend, it's up to the committee, but I would think whoever made the motion would also present the recommendation. Whoever makes the motion would would read our recommendation as well.
Okay.
All right, with that in mind, are there any particular articles that anyone would like to make the motion on?
On the ones that are being removed,
So noted, Mr. McDonald, you have your wish.
No, wait, let me go back.
You have your wish?
Mr. Chairman, he does not understand the rules of seniority. I was there first.
Mr. Paulson has, I stand corrected, Mr. Paulson. Mr. Paulson is.
What I was asking, with a certain amount of fear in my eyes, what I was asking is, when we did the write-ups for each article, are you suggesting that the ones we did the write-ups for are the ones we are presenting? That's what I'm...
I knew there was a reason why we thought he was qualified for this committee.
Well, no, I'm not suggesting that, but I'm just saying that's probably not a...
All right, Article 1. Anyone wish to present that?
Dave Trudell.
Mr. Trudell?
Actually, Mr. Trudell has a planned absence.
And that's right.
Starting on the first day of town meeting.
And going through the last day.
Whatever it might be.
How perceptive of you.
The chairman will present Article 1.
That's a good thing.
Article 2 is a citizens article, so there's nothing to be done. Article 3.
Article 3, page 5.
Article 3 has to do with the split on the capital planning, which would have been made by Mr. Trudell. I'd like somebody else to make that.
It's a 3-3 split, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
I can do that.
All right. The process here was, all right, do we want to split the recommendation, or just have the recommendation read by the person who makes the motion?
I would, I would probably repeat it. I really should.
Okay, that's fine.
So that
If
it's
everybody would like to do it that way.
understandable of why there was a split vote. Okay.
All right, why don't we do it that way, and then during the course of the normal debate, if a member feels strongly about the pro or the con, I would encourage them to speak up. Article 4, 4 through 9, I think we'll hold off on those. We know exactly where we stand. 10, water pollution control, another capital item, but who would like to present that?
Yeah,
Mr.
sure.
Mr. McDonald?
Hey, you looked right at me. Did you say Sam? Is that what you said?
11 is to transfer the harbor master. Who wrote the?
Might as well keep me up. I didn't do that one. Did I?
Sam, could you take that one?
Sure, I'll take that.
Which one is that, did you say?
Harbor Master.
Harbor master. 11.
Sam?
12 through 16 are all community preservation. I believe they will make their own.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
They will make their own.
Who has to read the recommendations? Do we read the recommendations? I'm not asking.
We're usually asked how we vote, and I would say at that point we should give our recommendations.
It's good of you to volunteer.
So,
No, I'm doing 17, I can tell you right now.
so it's 12 through 16, correct?
For who?
Oh, I know Renee's got her hand, she was waving in the air over there. Could you deal with those, Renee?
12 through 16.
12 through 16, just is reading our recommendations. Okay? Great opportunity for the town to meet you.
12 through 16.
12 through 16, Renee will read our explanations. The actual articles will be presented by Community Preservation. And our votes and recommendations will come from Renee. Article 17,
Which I always do.
pardon?
20 always
Which I always do.
Bonnie always says 17?
Yeah.
All about Ron.
18 is the earth removal. That will
do that
be
one.
the citizens, and Donna, you'll take the recommendation.
There's no
Right.
recommendation here, but we do have one.
We do have two, if you remember, and I'll send them out to you. We have a pro and a con.
Okay, good.
Who would like to do the pro? Nobody, who would like to do cons?
Which
Connie's for con?
18?
18.
there's no
There was no vote on it, was it?
There's no con. It was
No, it's all again.
If we were all.
Says 06.
Yeah.
Are we on the same thing?
Yeah.
So Donna's gonna do 18?
All right, Donna, you're gonna do 18. Let me check. I
But it's
believe there
for
was a
Connie.
positive
It was Connie,
There was-
06,
yeah.
0.
060.
And the,
explanations
and
here.
if I may, the recommendation I don't think is, I think is incorrect. The recommendation indicates that we didn't take a vote.
No, it does, I'm looking right at it.
Right up, 060.
It just says we
Yeah,
don't
and right
include a
below it, it
recommendation.
says FinCom only includes recommendations on financial
That's it.
articles, and it's.
Yes, but it was my understanding that members wanted to make a statement, which we can do.
Yes.
We just didn't print it because it's not a financial matter. The charter says on financial matters.
So you'll send me the printed?
Yes, I'll send it, I
Thank you,
have it.
Frank.
I thought there was both a positive and a negative on that one for some reason.
It was 060.
Well, but we wouldn't.
Yeah, but I think we also discussed the other side of the coin. I'll take a look. I'll take a look. Article 19. Which
That's
is
gonna
the,
be withdrawn, isn't it?
Yeah.
well, we're not sure. I thought that's the affordable housing.
So we're-
He said he's gonna be fine.
Yeah, I believe that's the one.
Well, sign up and you have to-
Okay.
Mr. Schneider said that's gonna be fine.
And Article 20 is a citizens,
It's a what?
a citizens petition, which they'll present, and who wishes to, who are we missing?
I'll do it.
Oh, Mr. Paulson, I don't think we've asked you, Dick, you wrote one of these. Which one did you write?
I wrote the one that's already been skipped, so I'm all set.
Which one was that? Which one was that? Which one was it?
I exercised my rights under the Fifth Amendment.
Can either
I did
confirm or deny.
I did the one here, I'd have to go back, it was so brilliantly written in on it. I think I did the affordable housing one, what do you call it?
Oh, then
I don't,
it's gone.
I'm
All
not
right.
sure. The numbers pass so quickly in front of me. There's a lot
Are
of
you
things
talking
that
about
happen.
birthdays or?
Yeah, at my age, a lot of, that's quick.
All right.
I'm
20,
happy to do whatever you want me to do something, tell me.
would you do 20, please?
But I do 20 plus, so.
I'll make sure everybody speaks up.
Okay, so
21 is the Bay Point Country
I'll do
Club.
21 first.
All right, Tom, I figured you want to do that one. And 22 is the town meeting information distribution.
Oh, I don't mind doing that one.
Ms. Brown?
Yep. 22?
Are you gonna do, you're gonna do 22?
Yep.
As favorable or non-favorable?
I'm against it.
You're the
Can I do the
con?
minority report on that?
You sure can.
Yeah, I'll be quiet.
So we'll present both. We're all set in the actual motions themselves. We'll make them according to that schedule unless it's to be made by the party who has the right to a 5-minute discussion. All right. Next item is fiscal year 2013 budget discussion. It's real simple. It's going to appear on the agenda going forward. We're supposed to receive our first budget December 15th. Keep that in mind because we'll probably want to meet somewhere after we receive that. All right, as soon as possible, because remember, we also will be very busy in the month of January. We have the school all-day meeting, which the principals come in and make their presentations. There's also the meeting that's required under town charter now, which is a public hearing at which the school committee runs, but the finance committee and the board of selectmen must be there.
That's right, too. Yeah.
All right, so we have to remember that that's in there along with our general deliberations. All right, January is a very, very busy month, and February gets even tougher. I just want to bring it up. I will discuss with the town administrator that the outline is the town charter, and we're going to request it also. I will discuss it with the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. I mean, it's very simple. We have to have certain columns in there. Hopefully, the department heads will get a little bit more information. All right, maybe an extra year thrown in or whatever put in so that we can see the trends, et cetera. We'll discuss all that with Mr. Cruz and Mr. Andrews, if he so wishes, what we're hoping to see. As far as the town meeting is concerned, that's by charter. All right, and it will be a little different than what we've seen previously. We seem to have skipped estimates, et cetera, which the charter requires. Any other business that anyone knows of that I could not have possibly have known of because I wasn't in the state? Mrs. Cthulhu.
I don't know if this is an appropriate time to insert this since I was not on the budget, but I'd like 5 minutes to make a public statement if I could. A whole 5 minutes?
Wow, that's long.
If necessary, 5 minutes.
So moved.
I have a question on this.
Okay.
I believe that this would qualify under the open meeting law for a executive session because it relates to personal matter. Do you wish to do it that way, or do you wish to do it publicly?
I wish to do it publicly because I have a confidentiality.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure that I offered you the opportunity to deal with it correctly.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Cthulhu would like to make a statement. Does anyone have any objections? I don't think we need to put this to a motion.
I don't know if I want to move down there.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It recently came to my attention that my integrity to serve on this committee was questioned. Okay. I recently was dismissed from my job. Okay. That dismissal is a matter of privacy, not just for me, but for other people involved and the company itself. It's not something I can disclose. However, I will make a public statement that my dismissal in no way broke the law. It did not endanger any patient whatsoever. That I in no way, we have to follow HIPAA rules, et cetera, et cetera. My dismissal has absolutely nothing to do with any of that. It was a disagreement between me and my employer. It is a private and a personal matter. I did not choose to pursue a grievance through the union to retain my job. I felt as though I was not appreciated. My work was not, emotionally, it's difficult for me. I love my job, okay? But I thought that leaving the break the way it was the best for me, okay? Since this came to my attention in a public way, I thought that it was best to present it to the committee as well as to the public, and that if the appointing authority in any way, shape, or form thought that I should be removed, or up to them to contact me to do so, in which case I will certainly go into an executive session and explain myself, okay? But to further have my reputation and my integrity hashed out in the media was humiliating for me. And I felt as though I needed to come forward and explain myself. And that is basically the statement right there. I will move on in my career and do something else, or who knows what I'll do. But I don't feel as though that situation stops me in any way from fulfilling my obligation to the Finance Committee. Thank you for my 5 minutes.
Mr. Fidel?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to you. Having known you over years on the Finance Committee, your integrity has always been there. It's a sad reflection of the community that you have to make this statement, because those of us who know you know what a fine person you are, and I feel badly that you've had to do this, Bonnie, but I'm still behind you 100%, almost.
Thank you.
Mr. McDonald?
I think I told you earlier how I felt. And I mean it, because for a person who's had my reputation dragged a few times, but not at the level you have, but I appreciate everything. We don't agree on a lot, we know that, but we get along and we do it right. We are, I've learned things from you, so I don't think it has anything to do with whether or not you're doing a good job as a finance committee member, because I think you are.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I know you are.
No, just a good job. How about an excellent job, okay?
Mr. Scatuli, I would expect that if you felt there was any ethical items to be reported, that you would do so to the moderator and to the town clerk as such. And I would obviously leave it to the moderator's discretion as to whether or not the appointing authority should even be consulted. So there's no explanation surely due to me, and I suspect another member will feel the same way, but it's up to you. Okay? And I have all the confidence in that. I don't know, it seems like I was wondering why you were being so enthusiastic over the last two meetings. We appreciate your input.
I want to add one more thing.
Careful.
Frank doesn't work, and neither does Sam, just for the record, so.
We can find you plenty of work, though. All right, we can find you plenty of work with the FinCom. Liaison reports?
I'll go
Go ahead, Donald.
Mine's very brief. Shoot, I wish I had the date with me. Regarding the Board of Health decision on the nitrogen, it is critical that we get down there and let the Board of Health to that hearing to, in my opinion, oppose it. That's just my opinion, because I believe that the $40,000 that it's gonna cost the folks that have septic systems and the $2,000 to monitor it is absolutely outrageous and will do nothing but hurt development here in our community. I think it's essential that you all at least go down and hear both sides, and hopefully that the town is not going to be able to make a decision with just on 2 Board of Health members. Hopefully they'll get another one, and at least you'll have 3 knowledgeable ones. Because I know that the 2 that are there don't want to make the decision.
At some point, if you wish to make it an agenda item, we'll make it an agenda item rather than just liaison reports. So
Actually,
the
the next meeting, I would like to have it on the agenda, and I would like to bring you all the data, the confirmed data that I have.
And at that point, we could discuss it. Any other liaison reports? Mr. Trudell, Capital Planning?
Capital Planning will meet tomorrow, 13th, in the cafeteria between 9 and 11. I believe we'll be discussing the warrant, Article 1. However, I have distributed to the capital planning members my rough draft of the 5-year plan, which would encompass 13 through 17. But I've also included 12 because of Article 1. Capital plan's got a long ways to go to be ready by the 15th of November for submission to the town administrator. So just so you know that the 5-year plan is coming along. Capital plan meets tomorrow. That's it.
Any other liaison reports?
We may have to discuss a conflict with one of my boards.
Okay.
At another date. I just want to mention that.
We can do that.
Okay.
Did you want to just discuss it with me personally, or do you want to?
Well, I don't know. My wife was just appointed to the Board of Library Trustees, and I'm the liaison for the Library Trustees. Is that a conflict? Because I really enjoy their meetings.
No, it's not a conflict as long as you publicly announce it.
That's it?
I'll check, let me check, I will check if
Okay, I
that's a
just
problem or
wanna
not.
check. And not like I had
You're right, it
influence
could be,
with Larry,
I will check on the ethics.
stated.
It's an ethics, it could be an ethics issue. But again, also, I mean, we're not making any decisions.
Well, no, you
It's
read
just,
my life. I
it's a
really don't know what to
communications
say.
channel. Let me check on the, before I say yes or no, I'll check on the ethics side of it. All right, there is the Mass Association meeting for financial committees this Saturday. So far, it looks like I'm the only one that's going. Thanks a lot, guys.
I'll be with you in spirit.
Represent
us well.
All right, so there was no other issues, because Kelly, you heard from no one else, right? Okay, they'll jump ship. I don't blame you, I wouldn't ride a Franklin with me in the car either. New business, I think we already covered. Next meeting. I think we should meet next Wednesday night. I know you're copying out all the time. It would be the 19th, which would be the Wednesday before town meeting. So he could meet then. Hopefully we can avoid having any meetings directly before the witching hour on the 24th. But at that time, I'll try to wrap up everything as far as motions and everything else are concerned. I'll try to keep it short.
Before we adjourn, Mr. Chairman, is there anything that it would be appropriate to ask that the moderator has any suggestions for town meeting from us at all?
The only comment that I would make at this point is, I believe we're almost done with the motions, so we're only waiting for one more, and hopefully you should have them in your hand or in your mailbox by Friday morning. So I hope in that respect that you're a little more comfortable that they're not coming to you on Monday night at 6 o'clock at town meeting, and that you'll have at least a week to look at them, and they're all pretty simple. We tried to simplify them.
We've been asked also to hold our meetings in a room across the hall on 225. It's a completely empty room, no furniture or anything. It's actually a better looking room. My only consideration might be that it would echo a little bit, but that's Mr. White's problem if he wants to record. It's not ours so much.
We won't get furniture over there. Right?
Yes, what they're talking about is permanently setting up a room, a meeting room,
Like the select.
for a number of committees that meet regularly. So I agreed we would try the room, and if it works fine, great. If we have lots of problems, particularly with if we're going to have our meetings recorded and televised, I think it's done us a world of good to do so. I might say that we recommend to the committee that we come back here, but they would like to just permanently take this room out of circulation for meetings. Okay? That all said and done, the chair will entertain a motion from Mr. Trudell to adjourn, seconded as usual by Mr. Gray. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.